Hello everyone. Today we are going to continue our classes and we will discuss about the freedom of the press in the United States. Of course, we are going to address the topic about US Constitution and first of all the First Amendment to the United States Constitution. We are going to discuss about the freedom of speech, the freedom of press, different constitutional amendments to this and the court cases addressing the freedom of the press issue, the restrictions of freedom of the press, and how US freedom scores among different other nations. First of all, the founding fathers of United States addressed the concept of constitutions, and the first words are "we the people," which means that the fundamental law is addressing the citizens of the United States, and the fact that the Constitution is providing the division of powers in US. That's why the founding fathers put very important aspect of the democracy as being mass media, the press. American democracy relies on citizens to have the information, to be informed, to make reliable decisions, and to keep the government accountable. The founding fathers determined that the power of knowledge, the power of information must be placed in hands of people. They ensure that if the freedom of the press is provided for people, people will have information from different sources, not only from the governmental institutions. That's why the First Amendment and the bill, the First Amendment, which is part of the Bill of the Rights, adopted and became a law in on December 15, 1791, states that Congress shall make no law restricting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof or abridging the freedom of speech or the press or the right of the people peacefully to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. The freedom of the press, first of all, provides possibilities to have the freedom of the speech and freedom of the press. The freedom of the speech is linked between the speech and the concept of democracy. The founding father provided the idea that, first of all, if American people will have information from different sources, they will be able to have very informed decisions. In comparison with authoritarian and totalitarian regimes, where the government is only one source of information and the flow of information is in one direction, there are not feedback in this case. In democratic societies, the feedback is very important. That's why in this case, there's a concept of freedom of the speech is that freedom of the speech is providing the marketplace of ideas. It's almost the same concept as the idea and belief in laissez-faire economic theory of democratic development of the society, when different economic market is developed by different institutions and different organizations. Of course, founding fathers did not expect that the ideas and the freedom of the speech will provide the ideas, and this will develop, will emerge in free development of the society on free development of ideas. But in the same times, in American society, it's very strong belief in the possibility of everyone to provide their thoughts, to provide their feedback, their opinion. That's why in this case, Americans believe in the truth. Whatever everyone has their own opinion, in the end, the truth will prevail. That's why in this case, the concept of freedom of speech as a marketplace of idea is one of the concepts of American society. The other concept is that on the personal level, the freedom of speech is very important. As important as the concept of individualism in American society. The freedom of speech is providing to everyone the possibility to express their ideas, to express their individual concept, their conscience, to express their imagination, their creativity, and to express their individualism. In this case, it's very important that on the personal level, through freedom of the speech, Americans can express their possibility to participate in political life, can join the decision-making process, can be part of the political process, and this is very important on the individual level. Of course, freedom of speech is not absolute in American society. First of all, means that not everything can be protected by the law. Is protecting by the law, first of all, the political speech, but is not protected by the law, so-called fighting words, which are abusive, which instigate to violence and to immediate violence. Also, language of inciting and urging of producing crime and committing a crime also is not protected by the law. Defamation, words that communicate and character of reputation and injury to other person are also not protected by the law. Abusive words are not protected by the law. So-called harassing speech is not protected by the law. And of course, not every other defamation words are protected by the law. It's very important to rely that freedom of speech is related to freedom of press in US. And as we said, the First Amendment is said that Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech and the freedom of press. This means, first of all, that the law is protecting everyone against the overreaching government, and first of all, the First Amendment prevents government from censoring the press. First of all, in the beginning, the First Amendment protected the press, which means that time that was newspapers, some pamphlets and books. In nowadays, media includes, of course, not only newspaper, but radio, TV, internet, and everything else which operates with the news. Censorship occurred when the government examined publication and tried to introduce some prohibition against those publications, those information prior to publication or afterwards. We will discuss this step by step. In our days, the concept of freedom of the press and that First Amendment mean the development of US constitutional protection of the freedom of the speech in all 50 states. The development of the concept of freedom of the speech guaranteed by the First Amendment developed through different court cases, which means that Supreme Court examined different cases related to the freedom of the speech. First of all, let's us examine first that kind of case, the case of Nia versus Minnesota. The case begins with a man named Nia, and he was the publisher of the newspaper called the Saturday Press. He was arrested because what he was written in a newspaper was considered to be prejudicial, racist, and hateful speech in general. Mr. Nia, the owner and the operator of the newspaper, was arrested for spreading the hateful speech. In response to that arrest, he appeals to claiming that the state of Minnesota violated his freedom of speech and freedom of press rights. He appealed, and the United States Supreme Court ruled that he was right and that Minnesota law violated the First Amendment of United States Constitution. This means that the ruling of Nia versus Minnesota distinguished between hateful speech and hateful action. It was found that the newspaper was not an immediate danger for the residents and was not harmful for the population. This means that the First Amendment protect American citizens and protect the freedom of expression against the violation of the law when the government will decide to prohibit prior to be published different articles. This means that this case proved, the case of Nia versus Minnesota, recognized that the freedom of the press rejecting prior restraint of publication mean that newspaper has the right to publish different information even and local government is not allowed to prohibit this information. The chilling effect means that sometimes newspapers will be aware of the fact that they may end up in court for the publishing different information. That's why this auto-restraint and auto-censoring different information means a chilling effect of the newspaper. The next case occurred in 1964, the case of New York Times versus Sullivan. This means, first of all, that the newspaper published and advertising paid by the civil rights activists, including Martin Luther King Jr., revealing different activities of the city on Montgomery, Alabama, and related to also to the police department in that city. Even the police commissioner Sullivan was not mentioned in that advertising, and after that the other newspaper published an article related to that advertising. Sullivan decided that his image was damaged because of that advertising and some other articles, and he tried to sue the newspaper. The court ruled that he can be awarded like $5 $100,000 at that time, 1964, about $4 million. The Supreme Court, whatever, after that, the New York Times was not satisfied with the court in Alabama decision. That's why the New York Times appealed to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court unanimously ruled in favor of the newspaper. That's why it's considered that the First Amendment is protecting the newspaper, and the court said that in order to prove libel, the public official must show that was said against them was made with actual malice. So this means that the newspaper knew that information was false and reckless and disregarded the truth, which means, first of all, that newspaper has to know for sure that this information will disrespect the public figure, or in this case, police commissioner, and so on. By the way, in this case, we can also put in line different publications of newspapers of different celebrities, of different actors and different singers in US, and usually they cannot win the cases of providing libel. This means that newspapers are free to discuss different aspects of their life, to come out and discuss sometimes their private information, private relationship, and so on. And the First Amendment almost is protecting the newspapers and different mass media. Well, I guess if you are a celebrity, you pay the price for this, that mass media is paying attention it's paying close attention to your life. The next case came to be the New York Times, well, against New York Times, against United States. About the so-called Pentagon Papers. Pentagon Papers, published in 1971, came out to be the historical documents obtained by the New York Times and Washington Post from the Defense Department employee Daniel Ellsberg. And in this case, those historical files developed the background of war in Vietnam and the whole historical involvement of US in Vietnam. Of course, government thought about injunction to prohibit to publish further, because the file was so big. The government prohibited further to publish the next portion of that document. New York Times took it to court, and the question was the correlation. Does the national security override the freedom of the press? The Supreme Court ruled that the Pentagon paper were not direct threat to national security. And in this case, the government cannot censor the press unless their reporting created an immediate threat to the national security of the troops and put the troops in danger. And only in that case that the government can limit the press to publish certain information. That's why in this case it's considered that it's limited cases where the government can censor the mass media here in US, and special during the time of war, when, let's say, the publications can put in danger to disclose the movement of the troops, and so on. The next one we can discuss about this is the concept, the bill, the Stop Online Piracy Act, which means, first of all, that the controversial issues between different TV networks, music publishers, industry of book publishers, against the companies as Google, Facebook, Wikipedia, which are trying to deal with the Piracy Act. Let us see here a short video how this will explain the concept of Stop Online Privacy Act.
It's pitched Hollywood and the music industry against the giants of Silicon Valley and the denizens of Capitol Hill. The battle over a bill that aims to bear down on internet piracy has turned into a culture war over two American touchstones: free speech and the economy. The Stop Online Piracy Act, known as SOPA, is intended to blacklist renegade sites like Pirate Bay that share copyrighted films and music. But critics say it creates the building blocks for a great American firewall, a catch-all clampdown that threatens internet mainstays like Google, Facebook, and YouTube. They say it will curb creativity, cost jobs, and even stifle free speech. Under the provisions of the bill, uploading clips of movies or TV shows to Facebook or YouTube could become a criminal act. Streaming of copyrighted content could land you with a 5-year jail term. One group that opposes the bill, Fight for the Future, even claimed Justin Bieber could go to prison for posting covers of Usher songs on YouTube. The bill would also allow the Justice Department to get court orders against the providers of the unique addresses that label every site, known as domain name systems. Critics argue that going after those who provide such addresses would amount to a fundamental attack on the plumbing of the internet, and would in any case be ineffective, since experienced pirates are adept at finding other ways to get their sites up and running. But despite increased opposition, support for the bill is growing. Its backers argue that sales of counterfeit goods over the internet reached $135 billion last year, and this argument has found favor in Congress. The bill looks sure to pass in some form. A similar proposal, known as Protect IP, has broad support in Congress. It looks like Washington is listening to copyright holders and their powerful pals. Silicon Valley and free speech advocates are now working flat out to try to kill the bill.
Well, in this case, in US society, the discussion about the freedom of the speech has historical long traditions. That's why politicians, political leaders are trying to be very careful with the limitations of the mass media freedom. For example, related to the Online Piracy Act, President Obama said that he will not support the legislation that reduce freedom of expression. And in this case, the bill is still ongoing discussion. Let's say Lawrence Tribe, a Harvard University professor, said that the Stop Online Piracy Act, so-called SOPA, would undermine the openness and free exchange of information at the heart of the internet. And this can violate the First Amendment, which means, first of all, that we will see further where this discussion will lead us to stop the piracy in internet, and for different companies losing their money over the copyright information and over the violation of counterfeited goods. Let us move further and see how U.S. Freedom of speech is related to the fact that, as we said, freedom of speech and freedom of the press are not absolute in United States. The law will protect freedom of press and will protect, first of all, the citizens against the government. And you can have access to different governmental institutions, and you can criticize different governmental institutions, but you cannot criticize public you cannot criticize private institutions. That's why First Amendment and freedom of the speech and freedom of the press, first of all, is related to the relationship between governmental institutions, government, and citizens. The restrictions, as we mentioned before, sometimes is a matter of national security. And according to the law, the mass media cannot publish some information which will endanger immediate military actions of the U.S. forces in case of war. Some very restricted cases, mass media can be censored by the government, do not publish certain kind of information. Also, press is not allowed to publish defamation, obscenity, incite immediate violence and unlawful activities of different groups or citizens, and so on. Let us go further and try to see how U.S. is placed among different other nations related to the freedom of press. Here we have the results of Reporters Without Borders, a think tank which is analyzing freedom of the press among different nations. You can see that, first of all, U.S. as other developed democracies have free press, but the rank is 41, which let's say U.S. having such strong and long traditions of freedom of the press, and where freedom of the press is one of the fundamental rights of citizens in the society, probably we can be a little bit surprised that U.S. is not scoring so high among different other nations. The explanation can be, first of all, that sometimes the freedom of the press in U.S. is related to different security issues, and in this case, the tension between national security priorities and governmental priorities and freedom of the press can take over. Also, in previous years, surveillance of journalists and of reporters also came out to be one of the impediment of U.S. scored so high. Here you have the scores according to Reporters Without Borders. You can see that previous years U.S. ranked higher, and now after that 2015 49 and 41 and so on. In case of freedom of the press, according to Freedom House, another think tank, also U.S. has free press, free mass media, as well as a developed democracy. Here you can see that green is the color for the free press. partly free, yellow, and purple not free, according to the Freedom House. And also US, in this case, according to this think tank, scores also among first 21 nation in the world. Let's say the incident of Edward Snowden in 2013, publishing a lot of information of surveillance of US governmental surveillance of different other nations, came to be a controversial issue, still debating in US society, as well as WikiLeaks. Being the debate between governmental protection of security of the state and freedom of mass media, freedom of speech, access to information. Different authors and different scholars are providing controversial arguments in those cases. I guess you guys also can debate this afterwards during the seminars and come up with certain arguments in favor or against those concepts of freedom of the speech, freedom of mass media, and governmental protection and ensuring security of the state. I guess this concept of freedom of press and freedom of speech in US can be developed further. I'm pretty sure that you will continue this discussion, but that's it for today, and let us continue next time. In the meantime, if you have some questions, if you have something to ask, just send me an email. Okay, thank you and all the best.